Get her, and guess who's coming to join me? Mike from around the world.
God bless you, Pastor. How do I sound?
Oh, you're coming in loud and clear,
Yeah.
and the people are smiling already. You know, I'm back home in my studio here in not Indiana. I'm back in my studio here in Florida, and when I'm at my studio, things sound so much better. But guess what, Mike? I ordered a brand new component, a box and headset system, so that when I go on the road next time I'm in a hotel somewhere, it's going to sound just like we are now.
Awesome.
Okay, so no more complaining.
That's awesome.
No more complaining. Mike, how you doing tonight? Are you ready for this new year?
Well, prepared.
Prepared.
I am prepared.
You're a little cautious, and you probably should be, because January 5th is just a few days away, and that's the start of what you've been saying is could be 17 dates in the year 2023. What's going to happen, Mike?
Well, again, January 5th is a date when one of the pulses, a pretty big pulse, will hit our heliosphere. The heliosphere, of course, outlines our entire solar system. It will actually hit, and so it will come inwardly. The full effects of this thing, nobody knows. But we're going to find out, though. It will be the first of, and we'll go into more detail about this thing, too, as we, on that date, because it's not just you would think it's just a band of energy that will come through and go out. No, that's not what this is. It will begin January 5th. You could say that we will be exposed January 5th. Of course, that will work its way into the inner solar system. The sun is going to be a big indicator on what types of radiation are found in this pulse band. We really don't know the effects. It could be something we never thought of. It could be something minimal concerning big events, but we're going to see something out of it. We will see some change. This will give a wonderful indication, a base indication concerning other problems, celestial problems. I think that 2023 is going to be a year of massive celestial problems, or let's say changes. These encounters that people have not encountered yet. Things they're looking for. So January 5th is in fact one of those dates. Many pieces of equipment are going to be pointed out to the heliosphere, to see exactly what happens to our heliosphere. And of course, anything that touches the heliosphere past Paul is also going to reflect on the sun's activities.
Yeah.
So that will be a date. Now that's when something hits the heliosphere, it's way out there.
Yeah.
If it causes a reaction within the sun, all bets are off. If something that distant would cause a reaction of the sun, then
how many million miles are we talking when you talk about the heliosphere? Give us I know the sun's 92 million miles from the earth. So
well, that's think of it this way. I'll give you a quick ratio.
Okay.
So we could see. If your desk, right? If you're at the front of your desk is about 30 inches long, I would assume.
Yeah.
So at the front of your desk would be the sun. And at the end of your desk, where it will fall off the edge, that will be the earth, right? So the heliosphere would be your desk. If you had blocks, we'll go down 30 or 40 blocks. That's the type distance you're looking at. So even if you had a BB, right? If you had a BB and you went and you set that BB down, 30 blocks down from that BB would be the heliosphere. So it's way out there.
So, okay, so this wave of energy is a couple things. It's going to hit the heliosphere. It's way out there. If the sun gets affected by it within 24 to 48 hours,
we're in trouble.
We're in trouble. So we don't, on January 5th, here on Earth, don't expect a change really on January 5th. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Not yet.
Yeah, you're looking at, because right there at the end of the heliosphere, right? Because we're looking at light, we're looking at reactions. We're essentially in a pressured, like a soda can. Here's
Yeah.
what can happen. If you puncture a hole in a soda can, it affects the entire can, correct? So if you hit the outside of the heliosphere, given all the solar winds that keep our solar system pressurized, we're essentially in a bubble. We can have a reaction very quickly. So you can't rule out something may happen that night or that, within 17 hours. You can't rule that out. They found that out. That was last year.
Within 17 hours.
Yes, something happened on the outside of the heliosphere, and they found out that we're essentially in a pressure bubble. We're in a positive pressure bubble because of the sun. The sun is a reactor constantly putting out power. The heliosphere is a magnetic shielding around our entire solar system. So on the inside of that shielding is essentially pressurized. Given certain exotic pieces of radiation, you can have a reaction, almost an instant reaction. Well, that's based on cosmic distance, but you can have that instant reaction within 17 hours. So I know it's 11 billion miles, that's pretty big.
That's a lot.
That's 11 billion miles.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But you're still in a pressurized state. We're still in a pressurized state. It's not like a bowl of Jello where an actual wave takes time to reach it, because it's pressurized in a very different way. You can have almost instant reactions on the opposite sides of the helium, just like the sun when it sends out flares. Every time the sun sends out a flare, those flares are actually induced by troubles in the heliosphere. If we have a part of the heliosphere this week, a solar flare will go in that direction. They found out how that mechanism works. You know what that means? That means solar flares can be predicted by examining the heliosphere. The heliosphere is mapped. It's actually mapped. They don't let, of course, it's hard to talk about some of this stuff because it's not public science, right?
Right.
They essentially have the entire solar system. It's gauged, it's mapped by some very sophisticated pieces of equipment. And anything that happens in the heliosphere, they already know about it. And they can expect a flare to be on whatever side of the sun that attracts it. It's almost like, if you had a water balloon, correct? You poke a hole in that water balloon, and it's full of water. You make a hole anywhere on there, water's going to pour out in that direction.
Yeah, it has to.
Right?
Yes.
The sun shoots out flares in the same way. In this case, though, if there's a weakness in the heliosphere on a certain part, the sun will shoot a flare in that direction.
So it would shoot a flare in the direction of that weakness in the
that weakness. That's right.
And so we don't know what that means, is what you're saying, and we won't know till it happens. And January 5th is the first one. Now, where's these waves coming from? I mean, where is it coming from, Mike? What's the origin?
There is a source center. Okay, there is a center. Eventually, people will be able to see that center. Here's the problem, though.
Okay.
If anybody were to mention
Mike,
that center now,
Mike, I want to put a shout out real fast. Stephen Benanoon's in the chat room tonight, and he's on a lot of our webinars. We'll put a shout out and say hi, Stephen. Glad you're watching tonight. And so we know he's all over a lot of this stuff too, Mike. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry for interrupting.
I'm sure he is. The location, if they were to give out specific coordinates, which will eventually be seen by most amateur astronomers, but this is going to be under a time of social duress. I say that because social media is changing for a reason. Don't think it's just happenstance. They're going to have to control the flow of information very carefully if they're going to continue to construct what they're constructing. And all of this is not some big conspiracy theory. That's not what this is. This is happening before people's eyes. Things are going to become quite obvious, right? Yes. There are going to be star systems that are starting to react in different ways. Even right now, there's been an explosion. You don't hear anything, do you?
No.
There's been an explosion.
Where?
Today. There was an explosion today in space. You don't hear a word.
No, what? Whoa, wait a minute.
I'm saying this because to let people know they're not going to hear anything until after they decide how to cover that story, right? And so I do this from time to time on purpose to let people know that there are a lot of things that are under real control.
When you say an
Information is under
explosion,
real
Mike,
control.
when you say explosion, are you saying, was this in the cosmos, or is this something?
Yeah, in the cosmos.
Okay,
In the
so it's
cosmos.
not one of our
So
weapons in space or anything
no,
like that.
no,
Okay.
no, no, no.
Okay.
So they can detect quite a bit. They can see quite a bit. They play a role. You know, if you don't say anything, nobody really reaches too far. They're not going to, you know, demand, you know, tell us how you know this or whatever the case is. They might do it with an individual, certainly not with an agency. And I'm saying this because once they break the story, you know, there's no telling what people hear. There's a list of things that people can hear, but they're going to break the story, and people say, "Wow, this happened for the first time." No, it didn't. That won't be the case. So people can remember this night. I'm telling you in advance, there was an explosion. It will be a newsbreaker. They'll have to explain it because people will detect it, and then of course, then they go through their routine. Well, there are other things out there in the space just like that, things that have already happened. We just have not faced the consequences of what happened. There are things that happened thousands of years ago.
News. You're giving us some breaking news that tonight on December 29, 2022, there was an explosion.
Yes.
Out there in our is it in our solar system, I take it?
No, it's outside of our solar system,
okay.
but it will affect our solar system.
Well,
it's kind of like beetle guys, right? Everybody's scared of
everybody's scared of beetle guys. Yeah.
They shouldn't be. That's the least of their worries. They shouldn't be. They're going to be blindsided when something twice as massive actually takes effect. Because they can't see it, nobody mentions it. Because the average person with a telescope cannot detect it.
I see.
They keep it out of the public's eye. And this is going to surprise people. People will find themselves in this state of, wow, I've been looking at the wrong thing. Here's a rule of thumb. If the public, if they advertise it, don't look at it. It's not the big deal. Don't look at it. There's something else going on.
So if an amateur astronomer or somebody like that spots this thing and sees it, then we're going to get some kind of notification, or we're going to get some confirmation that something did happen.
Oh, you'll get confirmation of this one.
Okay.
But as a general rule, what they're doing is a misdirect, Pastor Paul. They're trying to. They're coming out with stories. It's like why in the world would they tell us about an earthquake on Mars? Right? It's kind of like that. What's the significance of that? Why tell that? Well, that's kind of one of those bleed stories. There are lots of things in the heavens that are happening right now. They're hard pressed to find cover stories to deflect, to keep people's minds on something else. Because you know what? If people found out what was happening in the heavens, their imaginations would go wild, and then civilization would come to a screeching halt. If they found out the threat they're really under, nobody would be concerned about propping up any nation, right? They'd be concerned about their families and doing the right thing and this, that, and the other. So we're really in a situation in 2023 of a type of unveiling. We've reached a time where they really can't cover up what people are going to see. They just can't do it. So my expectation is expect some pretty significant things happening as far as nations are concerned. Because if people start looking up too much too fast, they're going to get wise to the threat they face, and they're going to be forced to cover it.
Well, let's talk about that, because just this week we've got the Serbia-Kosovo situation. It seems to be heating up again. And we thought we had, look, 1999, Bill Clinton decided to use NATO to do the bombing during the Monica Lewinsky situation he had. And just so happened the day he was doing his deposition, he decided to launch some attacks on Serbia. He backed the Kosovo Sunni Muslims against the Serbian Christians. Here we are now, 23 years later, and Serbian's president says, look, I am going to protect my people, I don't care what. And because I guess 50 or 60,000 Serbian Christians live in northern Kosovo. Do you think there's another conflict, another war about ready to break loose between Kosovo and Serbia?
I think all wars right now are related to a real crisis. We have a governmental crisis.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of a government civil war?
Well, it looks like it's going on in Washington right now, basically.
Well, we'll have a government civil war is actually government against government.
Okay.
Right? We're going to have a
Okay.
government against government type issue going on. Regardless of where they are reordering the entire world and how nations work. For example, democracy as we knew it is not democracy today. It's already been changed. They're introducing the system, and everything is being pushed, forced to happen. If you take close note, it's going to cause a lot of frustration. They already know this. Everything will be forced. In fact, it's a time where people have to really the real war is going to be this global spiritual war that's happening against believers.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Okay.
Pastor Paul, they're going to bring about. Listen, we have a governmental hierarchy being put in place right now. They will suppress. They're going to do away with real believers, and I mean that with everything in me. They're going to try and do away with real believers, and what I mean by that, how you worship, how we worship Christ, right? They're going to suppress everything they can about Christ. They're going to pervert it, distort it. They're going to bring up everything around it, and people will, if they're not careful, they're going to drift away this time. People have been given ample warning, but this is really 2023 is going to be one of those years that the average Christian is going to have to fight the good fight of faith, right? There'll be no sitting back just watching this time. It will affect everybody just about directly. In the meanwhile, we're going to see some very heavy global.
Okay, we just lost a mic around the world. Hopefully he'll call right back. He's telling us some serious stuff here about the Christians. Real Christians are going to come under attack. Mike, okay, you back?
Okay, that went dead.
Okay, hang on. Yeah, they didn't like that comment. Okay, so you're talking about Christians being under attack, a real attack, and you're saying, so in other words, this Serbia, Kosovo thing, and maybe even Russia, Ukraine, and other things, there's a real war going on against Christians globally. I mean, we can talk about North Korea, what they're doing to Christians, what China's doing to Christians, what the Middle East is doing to Christians, what they're doing to Christians in Canada, America, all over the world. Is that what you're saying?
Look at Russia and the Ukraine.
Russia, Ukraine, okay.
The populace of Russia, you have a lot of Christians in Russia.
Yes,
a lot,
you do. A lot, yes.
Now, but what do you see? You have governmental powers who are putting those Christians in very precarious positions. It's almost like they're forcing them to get behind some type of policy. Now, I'm not saying that. I think one of the mistakes that's being made is people they're starting to defend these leaders like the leaders have clean hands. The leaders do not have clean hands.
Neither one of them.
The people are the targets here.
Yeah.
Right? What the leaders are doing are involving the people, forcing them on one side or the other, forcing them to get their hands dirty. This is a strategy to taint the hands of a believer, to take away many things of a believer, to cause them to enter into things that's going to make them turn their back on Christ and his principles. And all a person has to do is open their eyes and say, how many things are causing me to go against the principles of Christ? That's all a person has to do.
Yeah.
They can start seeing the systems at play, because they will force a brand new leader on the scene. Now, to my understanding, somebody's coming this year, Pastor Paul. Something is coming this year that people are going to have no choice but to swallow, and it will not be business as usual. We're going to go through some pretty dramatic changes. Part of this product problem that's floating around the world. You know what that has essentially done, and they know it. Looking at statistics, the shortage that has been around the world has not been listen to this. This is going to get you. They talk about a shortage, but people still, they're missing a few items, but they're not missing anything major. Now, everybody stay with me.
They can survive with what they're missing. Right.
That's right. They're not missing anything major. But they knew as soon as they did this, guess who it hurt? It hurt the churches. That's who it hurt. That's who it began to defeat, the churches. Because how do churches operate, Pastor Paul? By donations. So how do you fundamentally attack Christianity and stop it from affiliating altogether?
Attacking the donation.
You financially scare the people. They withdraw donations. They're not going to give a thing. And then the churches can't really operate like they did. They take
No.
power away from the churches.
That's right.
This is what they're doing. And they're going to continue to do this until there's nothing left. They're going to hit in places where it's hard. And all the person has to do is open their eyes and see the truth and say, well, wait a minute, what is my life like? Okay. It's either a Christian is going to follow the word of God this year, or they're going to pay a penalty, because there'll be no one. There's no middle ground this time.
So
a person will fight.
So what you're saying is, even though we have a war going on between Russia and Ukraine, and even though people will try to choose one side or the other, the both leaders have no clean hands. We have Putin. We have Putin, who's bombing 120 missiles today on mostly the infrastructure and on civilians. We have Zelensky, who's not a Christian, nor does he stand for Christian values. Very immoral individual. And you have a lot of anti-Christian sentiment and movement going on in Ukraine. While Russia tries to be a Christian nation, the president himself has tons of sin all over. So what you're saying is, they're trying to use the people. They're trying to pit the people one against the other.
Well, they are.
And in America, the war is against the church by affecting the economy. They're trying to bleed the church, trying to bleed the individuals from their donations or their contribution or their faith in their giving. And by doing that, they try to bleed the church, the Christians, from their ability to spread the gospel. This is a war. It's a war.
Yep, they are.
They are,
and they know they are.
We have to stand strong in our giving, stand strong in our faith, despite what the world's doing. I know it's why Jesus said this, we're in the world, but we're not of the world. We have to not let the world affect us. But this is the war we're against, is what you're saying, Mike. This is a real war.
Pastor, they move people away from principles. To me, it's simple. It's probably simple to everybody else, but people want protection from anything that's coming, right?
Right.
But are they sowing? Are they sowing protection? People want mercy. Are they sowing mercy? People want existential blessings during that time when everybody else may be starving. They want something. Are they sowing?
You got to sow mercy. You got to sow mercy to reap mercy. You got to sow blessings to receive blessings. You got to sow finances to be blessed financially. And so if you start to cave and start to fail and to give and to be a part of the merciful, become a part of the Christian, just continuing to walk in your Christian faith, it will cost you in the end, is what you're saying.
That's what's happening. They're going to find themselves not being, and God knows, in this season that we're in, we're soon to have a water event. We're soon to have some celestial events. I'll go ahead and say one is going to be, I'll say one definite impact. We're going to see an impact of some type. They've already unleashed, they've already admitted they cannot contain some of the viruses and some of the bacteria that's been coming from melted ice that's in the oceans. People are now contracting. It's starting to spread. There's a flesh-eating virus that's resistant to every antibiotic. We don't have anything against it. And so what they're doing with those people are quarantining those. They're not even, in fact, it's a level 4 conversation is what that is. And they have moved certain individuals out of the populace. They can't even go to a civilian hospital. Right. It's kind of like in Hawaii. They have a special place in Hawaii, special place in Fort Hood, Texas, special place in Korea. They have these special places where they put people who catch diseases that there's no fix to. And they isolate these people to live out the rest of their lives in these places. And I'm telling you right now, there's some things coming on shore that are really messing some people up. And these things are spreading. There's nothing they can do about it. But Pastor Paul, we're facing things like that. It's starting to spread so much that it's only a matter of time before it starts to exponentially expand.
Okay, now you're the same man. You're the same man that told me in November of 2019 that millions of people were going to die in China by March, and they did, and they died around the world. You're telling us right now that there is viruses being unleashed from the frozen, the melting of the ice and different things. That it's already starting to spread. It's already happening. It's going to be unbelievable. Mike, are we going to lose millions of people from this?
I'd say this year we're going to see some very cruel losses. I mean,
is it global? Will it be global?
It'll almost be like people. I tell you what, people will say, they'll start to say in their hearts, is God merciful or not? is what they'll say in their hearts, unfortunately. Because you know what, we're spoiled to a degree. A lot of people have been kept, things have been kept back, Pastor Paul. But as of late, it seems like things are not being kept back.
Yeah.
They're just not. And so as you have more and more of these unfortunate encounters, more and more irresponsible people tampering in level 4 facilities that just shouldn't be there, we're going to have problems. But we're going to have the greater problems from magma shifts, right? Water issues. Something's going to happen. We're going to have to deal with the tainting of large bodies of water. Can you imagine the Great Lakes if one day you wake up and they say, well, it's poison, but nobody can do anything with that, right? Things like this will begin to happen. It's happened at a very, it's almost like it was a test. The Ohio River, remember when it was toxic? And people found out about that. It was a big story for what, a week and a half, and then it went away. When trains started crashing, spilling toxins into rivers, specifically into rivers, then that went away. People really didn't bite. Well, we're going to have some more things like that that will really take hold, but they'll be in a way that, you know, it's not some man-made crisis. It's going to be some unfortunate set of events that will take place. All of it's working towards a mean, obviously, but we'll see quite a few things this year, and we're going to see some cruelty concerning death. It's going to be very serious this year, right? It's not going to be a person won't recover this year like they did from COVID-19. Let's put it that way. They won't recover that way. Energy is going to hit its crisis point, right? Contrary to popular belief, as they have been warring and going back and forth on this fossil fuel versus renewable energies, right? They have been removing transformers from the grid. And who knows? Is that a story? No, it isn't. You know, that kind of infuriates me for this reason. Normally, since I was a kid, I watched out for elderly folks, right? They cannot survive in that type of environment. If their power fails in the summer, which it will, you're going to find out a lot of elderly have passed on because they simply can't make it. This winter, the grid was going down all over the place this winter when the temperatures dropped, right? No, we're not talking about an ice storm. And it wasn't a story. It just wasn't a story, but you had death. You'd be surprised how many people died during this cold blast. They didn't even print that number because it's appalling. So more things like that will happen. We will have, there's something they have designated an atmospheric river. They had to come to terms, right? The atmosphere is holding too much moisture, too much. But now they're getting into the reasons why. This ability for the atmosphere to hold the moisture it does is double what they've been putting out to anybody. And so this year, we're going to see the consequences of these atmospheric changes, meaning a thunderstorm is going to be terrifying for people, right? Not because of the, hail or anything like that's going to be bad, but they're going to be frightened of water, Pastor Paul. There are going to be places that will be frightened of water, and other places will beg for water. At the exact same, you may have one town totally dry, another town totally flooded at the exact same time. But neither one will have an ability to retain or utilize the water they have or don't have. Those who don't have the water won't be able to get it. And those who have the water won't be able to use it.
Yeah, you've talked about this before, Mike, and the Bible does say this, folks, in the book of Hosea, that it will rain on one city but not two others. And that the people in the two other cities will go to the one city to get water, and there still won't be enough to drink because they can't utilize. For instance, if a city gets a ton, if you get a flash flooding or you get a rain bomb, and I've heard Mike talk about these rain bombs that we're going to hit, and we've seen this about the last 3 years. You get a ton of rain, and all of a sudden you got a flood. What good is it? And then two other cities are sitting out here in the West, in say United States. You can't get enough rain. They're running drought, and they're putting rationing on water. This is exactly what the Bible said would happen in the last days. And Mike is telling you that it is happening and it's going to continue to happen. So, yes. Mike, I don't think people understand that everything you're telling us that is actual because of the events happening to the Earth and to the solar system. is what the Bible said was going to happen. This isn't, it just, we don't believe the Bible, or we don't read the Bible, one or the other. But you're telling us the truth. I know you are. It's scriptural, and it's also factual. You've got the information in front of you.
I think a lot of people, Pastor Paul, have allowed fear to begin to govern their lives, and that's a mistake. Fear should never tell us what direction to walk in. In this case, a lot of people, when they hear information like this, they get overwhelmed because of Hollywood. Right? Nothing will happen like Hollywood. Nothing will. It's not going to be like Hollywood. It's just like right now, we have a populace. Do you not know that there are certain races on a massive decline right now? The birth rate, right? The census information does not match the daily record. It does not match. The numbers are not matching. There's a severe decline in the birth rate, and that's going to continue. Babies will stop being born altogether. There's also a high deformity rate that's starting to happen.
What's causing
and it's
all
almost
this,
like they're
Mike?
whisking people off. Well, because it's regional, right? We're not talking about all over the world in every single city. That's not what we're talking about. There are certain places that have a high deformity rate.
Yep.
And other places don't. Now, the reason why it's probably not smart right now to name those places is because people will find a cause. And if they find a cause, it's going to turn into a political problem where the people get themselves hurt. But yeah, we have this issue going on. Plus, we also have childbearing is being discouraged from a lot of people.
Yes.
And teenagers these days, although they are, pretty mischievous these days, and they have they don't have moral restraint upon them. You're looking at a populace who is essentially, all of them are getting snipped. They can't do anything.
Right.
So with a populace like that, they're not investing back into the future.
Let me ask you a question. Yes, they are being birth control and different types of mechanisms to slow down the population. But also, tell me if I'm wrong, but it don't seem like the desire. I don't think that the young teenagers today and have the same sexual desires than we did in our day. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
No, because things are not natural. There have been other elements. See, Pastor Paul, here we go. Since in the early 2000s, up until this point, a lot of people in the church have been engaged in arguments with each other. And when they do this, they can't see anything outside of that argument. Well, guess what happens when two Christians argue? They will not rebuke the true evil. They start calling each other evil, while true evil prospers. Even in the Bible, it says Satan will manifest himself as an angel of light. So while people are looking for some ugly thing to be Satan, that's not the case. He's going to be the best looking thing, the best situation, or the best this, that, and the other presentation anybody ever saw.
Right.
And that's a mistake. We're in the time where just in the Bible, when the Bible says that, there come a time when people will call right wrong and wrong right. We're in that time right now. And this kids these days are governed by a different spirit altogether. Parents can feel it in the homes. That's why parents spend their time. They spend their time walking on eggshells, trying not to, have their child throw a temper tantrum. They're frightened. There's a real fear there. Not the older generation, but this newer generation. They cater to the child. The child is ruling over the parents. The child dictates where they're going to work because the child dictates what they must buy for them every single month. If take a phone away from a kid or stop their service, they're going to demand to get that restored. And society is going to back that demand, right? Because everybody starts looking at the kid gets under pressure, he blows up at home, the parents are frightened, and you actually have a high crime rate of children killing their parents. There's a high crime rate.
Yeah,
there's even there's a gag order given to law enforcement reporting agencies. They cannot report all these things that are happening out there. In other words, the world is in a rough condition right now. They're in a deep state of immoral. There's a spreading of a moral character going all over the place.
Absolutely.
The fundamentals, and I'll say it again. Back in my time, everybody knew who Christ was. Didn't matter
Right.
where you came from. They knew who Christ was. These days, that's becoming a foreign name. I have never, ever met a human being until the year 2021. I've never met a human being that did not know who Christ was. I have met human beings in 2021. They don't know who Christ is.
Oh, Lord.
That's impossible, because the
Right.
only people that wouldn't know who Christ is are those who do not come from the Father. So they are from a different origin altogether. We're not talking about ET. We're talking about they're from a different spiritual line altogether. They have no salvation. They're walking the earth, because if a person can't identify with Christ, God did not give them that intuitive knowledge. It's not sown into their spirit. They're of a different origin. The Bible says we're in this world, not of this world,
Right.
because we have an origin from the Father.
Right.
Some of these kids, Pastor, they don't identify with Christ or anything dealing with Christ.
Mike, let me
I've
ask
never
you a
seen that
question.
before.
Is there something being put in the water and in the food to change the hormone the hormones of the young people, and is this part of the depopulation? Is this going on, Mike?
The parents, right? There are DNA traits. The parents are not passing on to the children. There's also an intrusion of DNA. Period.
Why?
The idea that they're putting something in the food, the water, something like that. That's a nice way of putting it. If it were that easy.
Okay.
Because that would be easy, right?
Okay.
That's like food poisoning. Anything meant to harm the body can easily be undone, but you have a different type of intrusion taking place, and it is even that subject is difficult to talk about, because you have so many people that can't believe it. While they're talking about physical things, I'm telling you right now, there are intruders here on this planet, on this earth, that are tampering with women, that are tampering with males.
Okay. Yeah.
Then they have children.
Yeah.
They have the children. Those are the kids. But most people, Pastor Paul, I'd say 4 out of 10 people have been tampered with, and they don't even know it.
From demonic activity or some type of entity that is affecting
If a person is not washed by the blood, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how old they are. If the parents fail to cover their children, if the parents fail to cover that house, somebody's going to be tampered with, period. That they're fair game. It's like real estate. Human beings are like real estate in the spiritual realm to dark forces. And if you're not covered by the blood, well, then they can go claim that ground. They may be kicked out, but they can do damage while they're there. So you're looking at a fundamental change, a physiological change, a physical change. Do you know the human body is different than it was 15 years ago?
I believe that.
It's not the same.
It's
just not the same.
Yeah, I believe that.
Even the bone structure is not the same. It is different. So there have been some big changes that they're pretty difficult to discuss, but the examples are coming. When the demonstration is here, these subjects will be open. But I give everybody caution. Is
this part of the principality of, demonic forces that are involved? There's intrusion.
Think of it this way, Pastor Paul. You have Asian folks, you have African American folks, you have Caucasian folks, all that. Right. There are other folks, right, that were not introduced to yet. They can walk among us, you wouldn't notice them, but they carry no traits like we do. They're still human beings. They do bad things, right? They do some very bad things. They will soon be introduced, and they did not come from up there somewhere. They've been here all this time. They'll be introduced, but they have a plan, and they're going forward with this plan. I'll tell you right now, most of what people see in the earth has to do with a kingdom that will most certainly come, a kingdom that will reign on the earth. But the people are being subdued right now is what they probably don't understand. They're being subdued right now spiritually. They're being spiritually weakened right now if they're not careful.
I believe that. Yeah,
so when this kingdom comes in, because there are agents within government, right, that will speak openly about it. and they'll say our time is coming. There are buzzwords in the Pentagon. I'm sure that you said Stephen was here. Stephen knows there are buzzwords in the Pentagon. They have a clock counting down, and if they step up, nothing's going to push them out. They already know the biblical narrative. They know everything about prophecy. They know when their time is. They're going to take full advantage of it. They're going to do it at a time when the earth is breaking, falling apart. We're looking at crustal displacement, a water event. We're going to have multiple impacts, not just, we're going to have multiple
let's talk
impacts.
about
we're going to
that.
have meteor storms,
Let's
fires are going to be all over the place.
Let's talk about it, Mike, because
you
you said in 2023 we're going to have a water event. We're going to have a deep impact in the water, okay? Something's going to hit here. Can you tell us, could you give us an idea? Is it in the first half of this year? Is it the second half? Do we know?
It could be. I do know this. I do know the tracks, right, are pointing, and they're always going to be pointed right to the north of the equator this time, because we've shifted just a little bit. They're going to be north of the equator.
Okay.
And that means, given the rotation of the earth, that's going to be an oceanic blow. So it's going to hit in the ocean, right? Now, it's going to give people that time of caution, but it's still not going to be a passive event. If you have something, because more and more scientists are saying it more and more, it's a pretty valid point. We have incursions taking place more and more. We have more and more air bursts. They're taking place. When these things start hitting in the ocean, Pat, here's the bad part about it. These things are coming with lots of debris. And what that really means is that we're going to have breaches in the atmosphere. It was 4 years ago. We talked about breaches in the atmosphere, and a ton of people came out and said, oh, we can't have breaches in the atmosphere, right? That's one of the main topics they're talking about right now, are breaches in the atmosphere, airbursts. They're starting to educate people on what an airburst is and what it causes. But they don't want to talk about the subject because a lot of people know what's coming, right? They know what's coming. Some of these educators, some of the people who set up standards for educational books, they know what's coming. They don't want to look like hypocrites in front of their new subjects. And so what they're doing is educating people on what an airburst can and cannot do. Why are they doing this? Because they know what's about to happen. They know a lot of debris is coming in this direction. Celestial dust is essentially rocks the size of your car. That's what dust in space
Come
is.
on, Mike.
Okay,
are you
so
serious?
that's what we're flying into.
Your car. Mike,
so somebody says, if somebody says we're going to fly into a dust cloud, right? That's what the dust particles are the size of your car.
Okay. So you're saying we're going into a debris field of apocalyptic nature.
Yeah, and it's not just for, it's not for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. We're going into it. It's going to take, it's estimated, it would take about 27 years to get through the whole thing.
During that time, the Earth's going to get pelted.
Yes, we will. And that's the entire point.
Is this going to start this year in 2023, the first one?
Yes.
Did you hear it, folks? I'm telling you, it's coming. And this is what the Bible said was coming, Mike. It said it was coming. So the first one is going to happen in 2023. You just heard him. Yes. And then, Mike, will it increase exponentially or just?
Oh, I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to hit the heart of it, because when you start going into a dust cloud, no dust cloud just shears off, right? They all build up. Mm-hmm. So it's the density is very low at the beginning.
Is that why
in the middle?
Is that why you said don't worry about Apophis coming in 2029?
That's exactly why. That's why I said, people who are sitting in a seat of disbelief, don't waste your time on those folks, but get yourselves. We have to get mentally prepared for this. Yeah. We have to get physically prepared for this. We really have to get prepared. I'll give an example of something, Pastor Paul. Right now, I'm going to call it a spirit. There's a spirit that's just sucking the life out of people where they cannot get prepared. They have a mind to do things, but I bet you have tons of witnesses out there that will say, in my mind, I'm getting prepared mentally. I want to do it, but every time I start to go forward to do it, I'm just zapped of all strength. My energy is gone. I have no willpower to do it. What in the world is going on, right? It's almost like they're fought to the point when they realize they're being resisted. They find they 2 weeks have lapsed. Yeah. They just let time is just lapsing on people like nothingness. And this is part of this is due from the magnetosphere, by the way. And we're going to continue to have problems from that, because let's go ahead and face it. The body, right, and the earth they're almost like mirrors of each other, right? the Earth suffers from the same things we do. If something happens to the magnetosphere of the Earth, your brain is not going to function like it normally does.
I
And
agree.
this is a big issue. So here's what happens with a lack of a magnetosphere. People get 20 times more aggressive than normal. People snap like that. That means you could say something to a person, and where they could normally suppress it or just blow it off or laugh at it, they're not going to be able to do it. They're going to pull out their weapon that they're armed with and shoot you, right? This is the point we're getting to. This is the danger of what's coming to society. Something they can't really, this is not going to be circumvented, and it's already happening. Because as it turns out, every single time there's a hiccup in the magnetosphere, you can actually map what cities it affects, and sure enough, in those cities, the crime rate will rise in proportion to the changes in the magnetosphere. They have people out there on the net, they track the magnetosphere. All they have to do is begin to tie those ratios together, and they'll see them. They'll see that one it's a cause and effect, and it never fails. And that's pretty eerie thought. So expect aggression to rise this year also, because we're going to have some major hiccups in the magnetosphere. Major hiccups.
Folks, Mike from around the world's joining us tonight. We're talking to some serious stuff here. You know, when he makes a tremendous case here for the events that are happening on the earth. The fact that he confirmed tonight, which I think is just huge, that yes, we will have a deep impact in 2023. Yes, there's going to be a lot of different things going to happen in 2023 that are going to be very concerning. And we, as Christians, this shouldn't shock us, because the Bible told us it was going to happen. We just didn't want it to happen in our lifetime. Okay, we're here. Okay, we're here. We just get to be, we're the bride. It's going to go. Well, get ready to deal with what takes place before we go.
That's right.
Am I right, Mike? We have to we got to be big boys now. We got to put on our big boy pants and say, okay, if we're going to be the part of the end time remnant church, the last church that gets to go, deal with the things that go along with that just before Christ comes. He told you what to do. Just if you don't do nothing else tonight, go home after the show's over, read Matthew 24. Just read it. Don't put your doctrine in it. Don't put what you were taught for 30 years in it. Just read what Jesus said. Read what he said.
Yes, and it's so
pretty
true,
plain.
Pastor.
It's pretty easy to understand when you read it that way. So, Mike, let me ask you this question. CERN is cranking. Heidi's doing a research right now. You know, we're getting ready for this next webinar, which is called Concerned. It's about, Concerned. It's about CERN, the World Economic Forum, Agenda 2030, and the New World Order. She's looking right now on everywhere in the world there is a CERN machine.
She's going to find a lot.
She did. She walked in here a few minutes ago before I came on the air, and she said, Paul, you won't believe how many CERN machines are in the world. Yep. It's not just
the one. Everywhere. They're everywhere.
Why, Mike? Why? Can you help me understand why?
Because it's one of the highest priorities on Earth right now. Highest priority. Well, first of all, CERN they've been storing up anti-electrons, anti-proton, anti-matter for some time now, right? It yields quite a bit of power, period, right? Now, whoever can wield that power, no one is going to defeat. That's number two. Essentially, they're in a race. They're in a race to beat the other guy from discovering this endless source of power. Think of a nuclear bomb, right? Okay. It's a lot. If you understand how a nuclear bomb is constructed, it's a lot of mechanisms and a lot of radioactive material, a lot of culturing that has to go into that. But if you could collect enough antimatter, right, something the size of your pinky can do about, I think the ratio is, 300 times more than what a nuclear bomb could do, the size of your pinky, with little to no effort. Plus, in order to properly grow artificial intelligence, you need computing power. You cannot replicate the computing power. And they had an example, Pastor Paul. Now this verse is going to sound strange. It's going to go into the twilight zone here. I'm ready.
All
right. So all of us here, we understand that on Earth, on occasion, whether you believe it or not, people claim there have been crashes here on the Earth. Things fall to Earth, correct? Well, I'm going to make it simple. Exotic constructed materials have fallen to Earth and have been found on Earth. So have exotic pieces of machinery been found on Earth that do not work in a way that we understand it. They're not working by protons, neutrons, and electrons. They're not working by the proton or electron theory, right? They're working in another way. And so CERN, way back in the 1900s, some of this material was collected. In the 1920s, they actually took a deep dive into this material. In the 1940s, they took some mathematical endeavors or leaps into this stuff, and they found out that this power is not coming from what we understand. So they had to track it down. They hired universities. They began to recruit the smartest and the brightest minds out of many different universities. And they began to back engineer this stuff, only to find out it's working from a power source they don't understand. And they found out they have to harness this power source. As we have developed computers, they give us just enough computing power to run simulators. These simulators reveal certain processes that you have to perform to acquire certain atomic numbers and certain atomic weights and all these different mathematical ratios and physics constants. You have to get all this stuff together. Computers revealed that. And so they started building machines to acquire that. In order to acquire that, you have to understand matter at its most fundamental source. You have to understand the nuclear force, right? The nuclear force is the strongest forces ever. What holds your body together is a force more powerful than what holds the entire solar system
That's
together.
unbelievable. Yeah,
okay?
I get that. I forgot
and so
what
they had to find this. That's what CERN has been doing. They've been trying to find the glue that holds things together, because if they can find the glue, if they can map the glue, get the properties from that glue, they can use the glue. They've already found dozens of keys. They've already found, there have been so many discoveries at CERN and in its international consortium that it is just mind-blowing. Well, they also found out something else, Pastor Paul. This power source, understanding the nuclear force will help them understand this power source, will help them understand how the data is coming back the way it is. Because think if you found a machine that can actually predict everything pretty well. And we're talking about flight mechanics. If you had a machine that could predict the elements better, before the elements ever acted on it, then you could go right through water like water didn't exist. But you have to predict where everything is going to be before it's ever there. In other words, you have to run billions of simulations on the actual atoms that are around you. And then you have to navigate through them. You have to magnetically move atoms in your own vessel, right, to go around or to utilize and then put back together these other things. It's quite complicated. This is what they're doing. So that gave way to craft that this Area 51 S4, Magic Land, Bright Land, parts of Greenland, all these other areas where they store exotic craft and propulsion technologies. They made it ludicrous by overly exciting everybody about this UFO stuff. They made it kind of funny, right?
Yeah.
So some of the UFO stuff is real, and a lot of it is nonsense. But they did this on purpose to cover for what they were actually doing, which was the development of machines that is just very hard to even conceive of. CERN is affording them the right mechanism to extract the properties they need to understand all of it. And believe me, they're not going to quit doing what they're doing. It's given way to so much. Quantum computing is only the tip of the iceberg. AI is one of the ultimate. A human being cannot control what they're developing. It requires AI, but AI is going to be based on power. See, the more power you have, the more you can compute, because you're essentially dealing with some neurological system. So they need lots of power, but not power from like a battery or AC power from the wall, not that type of power. They need a different type of power, right? And when they get this power, it's going to fuel the AI. When the AI is fueled, it will essentially become a super brain. Well, they already have 2 super brains right now. And believe me, they have tricked everybody already. I can tell you that with the highest of confidence. all of your listeners have been fooled because they did not call it out, nor will they call it out because they cannot recognize it's AI. That's almost impossible. Discernment will allow them to see it, but only if they back away from being biased towards anything in the world. They got to back away from the world to see the truth, and then they'll start to see this doesn't fit. But as long as they're on the playing board, they cannot see it. You can't see it when you're on the board. And it's already operational. It's already working. It's already fooled everybody.
So this is why there's all these different CERN machines, is they're competing to try to find the magical formula, the magical. Go ahead.
Let me make one thing. They do compete, yes, but CERN, when they have these breakthroughs, it takes all those facilities to break down the data.
Okay, so they're working in content. They're working together,
yes,
but in competition. Yes. Right. Okay.
China works. China has. Think of them as using computers in the same room, but different people are running different experiments, and so in that way, China competes with the West, and the West competes with Middle Eastern factions, and so, but they're utilizing essentially the same stations, right?
Yes.
And they want to see who's going to be the first to have this breakthrough. But all these systems, all these colliders, all these collection points, all these emulators and everything else, they're being utilized for one essential purpose. That's why that iconography in Switzerland is there in the first place.
Now, there's in front of this thing is the statue of Shiva,
creator and destroyer of worlds.
Thank you. That's what.
But that's just yeah.
Okay, and then we had the pageantry and the the big presentation and the what really weird stuff. Is that just for show, or is this part of it, even though they're doing all this scientific stuff, as you said, and they're trying to reach that ultimate goal? Is it also spiritual? Is it demonically spiritual, or are they trying to pierce the veil into a next dimension as they do this, is collectively?
Well, you really want to know that answer? Here we go.
I would like to know that answer. I think everybody, 8,400 people would like to know that answer, Mike.
They're paying tribute, Passball. It's the same reason why the Apollo missions, the Gemini missions, the space shuttle missions, military missions, Air Force missions have specific patches. When you go into space, when you go into regions that are guarded, you have to have a rite of passage. So you have to have incantations, and essentially you have to pay homage. You do. On the missions to the moon, whether people believe they went there or not, dealing with the astronauts held a seance. Just so you understand this, they did things on the moon, psychically, back here to Earth. That was one of the major priorities of that mission, something that they did, something that happened. It's published. The findings are published. And they did quite a few things like that. The Air Force right now, they have special directives when they develop aircraft, depending on the height at which these aircraft fly. They will pay homage to whatever guards that particular area. Again, Apollo was one of the most, was in the early days, Apollo, that name, Apollo, Apollyon, whatever you want to call it, they had to pay homage to it. They did, or they thought the mission would fail. Where did that come from? That came from the German scientists that came over here. The German scientists, they said they were not succeeding until they began to pay tribute to the spirits that ruled, that were guardians of around the earth and other places. So that's where it came from. They were highly familiar with that. That's why they had a high success rate. Germany, those German scientists accomplished what we're just now accomplishing. Let's put it that way. And so we took everybody. We even took the scientist that made the bell. We had him too. We had all of them over here, and they began to further. They never stopped developing in Germany. They came over here and they continued development. And there was a split. And that was the actual split between black space ops and regular space ops, or I'll say black space ops, tactical space ops, and then public space ops, which is the public side of NASA. So it became that complicated, and we're still in that phase. Never ended. These guys still do what they do. They have advanced much further than they did back in World War II. They never stopped developing. They only made successive steps. Those are incantations and necessary ceremonies. They display them to the world, or have to have them on display to the world, because you cannot hide a ceremony to such a deity. That's what they believe. That's what they do. That's what they have done.
That's quite interesting, but I believe every word of that. I know that because when we deal with the levels of science, the levels of space exploration, the levels of deep digging into the earth, all of these things that take place, people realize there's a sacred. They're going into levels. They're going into areas that have never been explored by man, and they know they're entering God's territory. And to some degree, they're calling on a higher power, whether it be God or the Lucifer or whoever, to try to guide them through it. Not everybody's a believer involved in these things. And we know that every astronaut who's come back has said, this is huge what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with, I've gone to areas that no human understands. I've entered into stratospheres. I've entered into God's territory. And also they encounter things that none of us have encountered. Would you say that's true, Mike?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They know it. They know it. They essentially, Paul, they know about the dark side of the spiritual realm. They have been bedazzled. They see a little. I mean, to a Christian like me, if I see magic, I'm going to swat it like a fly swatter and move on with my day. It's not going to attract my attention that much. But you get the average person, they start seeing supernatural things. They're really shocked by it, right? A Christian shouldn't be really shocked by supernatural things. Because we have a supernatural father, which is above the natural father. But they see these things. But it's too late. Once they see them, they're one of the first. I talked to a gentleman one time, and this one particular gentleman said, once you realize it's all real, it's too late. You've already become loyal to the opposite side. And believe it or not, these guys are frightened to betray the darkness they serve. They're frightened. They think they're going to lose their family and everything else, because dark forces do dark things. I wouldn't advise anybody to ever try to understand evil itself. Don't ever do that, folks. But these people, many people operate under threat, especially your high power people. They're under threat. How do you get out of that? There are a lot of people who want out, Paul. They can't get out. They feel that if they get out, that their souls are going to be doomed. And they have been, most of them have been threatened directly, right? Only a true believer can help in that area. Only a true believer. But a lot of these guys are trapped. They really are. They're essentially trapped. But they have absolutely seen the darkness that is all over the earth that will soon be made manifest. And when it's made manifest, every human being will see it. Because no one's leaving this earth until they have given their honest choice, whether it be Christ or otherwise. No one leaves the earth until they made that choice. And that choice is coming to a large amount of people at one time, as it was seen.
Folks, Mike Around the World tonight has shared with you January 5th is going to be the first time that the first of 17 events that's going to happen to our solar system. It's going to hit our heliosphere, which is 11, I forgot how many billion miles away, or 7 billion miles away, whatever it is. We don't know what the effects is going to be on the sun, all the planets, the moon, or even the earth. We're going to we're going to understand a little bit more about that a day or two after it happens, or 3 or 4 days after. But what he's saying is that's just the beginning. There's 17 of these events. And then, of course, we have a deep impact coming, a water event, or some type of a meteorite or something's going to hit the earth this year. And that's the beginning of many. So in 2020, and then we got the wars, rumors of wars, we got the pandemics, we got these diseases being released, the viruses being released. All these things should remind us what the Bible says, that we're truly living in the last days. This is what Jesus said was going to happen. We shouldn't be shocked by it, but we are, because we didn't think it would happen in our lifetime. So I'm going to ask you, and I'm sure Mike is going to say the same thing, please consider where you are with God and consider tonight giving your life to Jesus Christ. Mike, would you agree?
Yes, I would, Pastor Paul. Time is shorter than we think it is. You know, it's always death comes at nobody wants death to come, but it does come. Well, guess what, Pastor Paul? I know people, we all talk about the rapture and we can't wait to leave this earth. Somebody's leaving in 5 minutes. Somebody's leaving in 10. And what I'm saying is somebody's moment comes every single minute.
Yes.
Somebody's moment comes. But the answer is, what have we truly chosen in all honesty? What have we chosen? The blood of the Lamb or something else? Because we're not going to fool the Most High.
No.
We're not going to fool him. And if a person should, and it's not based on age. Passing is not based on age.
No.
Passing is based upon the Messiah. He has the keys of hell and death and the grave. And when he decides it's time, it's time. But we're not promised tomorrow.
That's right.
I couldn't see how a person could be so insecure about their future, yet they have not made a decision right now. They're putting things off for tomorrow, and tomorrow's not promised. Wherever a person is right now, truthfully, that's where they're going to be. And that's why people get in these positions, Pastor Paul, and they say, well, I'm going to change, in a couple of months, but they find themselves in the same state the entire year, and they wonder why. It's because where you are right now is where you are. But here's the beauty of it. We can change where we are right now in Christ. We can do that. We can change everything right now today. That's part of the beauty of the blood.
Amen.
Is we can make that decision, and everything changes right now at this moment.
Today's the day of salvation, as Mike said.
Yes, it is.
Don't wait to see how it's going to play out, because first of all, you don't know, if you have no promise of tomorrow. So this is your hour. This broadcast was set up for you tonight, today. Choose the Lord today. Let's make sure every person gets things right with God tonight. Mike, thank you so much. When you come back with us, Lord willing, next Thursday, it'll be 2 days after the event of January 5th. You might have some information for us.
I probably will.
Okay.
I'm sure I will.
I'm sure you will. And I hope you'll share it with us and let us know what in the world we're looking at and what to do.
I'll always do my best. Always do my best. Keep people informed as best I can, Pastor Paul.
I know you do. Thank God for you. Thank God for you. And we in the body of Christ truly appreciate it. And God bless you. And thank you, Mike. It's an honor having you on the broadcast tonight.
God bless you, Pastor Paul. The honor is mine.
God bless. Amen.
God bless.
Mike, from the world.